Welcome back to podcast number 17. I'm glad that you are here. We're talking about the way we see God in these programs, and I've said over and over again that how you see God will frame the way that you understand everything and all of reality. Ultimate reality is what we're seeking to live out of, isn't it? We don't want to live in an illusion. You don't want to live in some fantasy land where you're pretending that something is real when it's not. We want to know the ultimate truth. We want to know real truth, eternal truth. We want to live from that place. Ultimate reality is the phrase that I use, but Jesus actually referred to that as the kingdom of God. I have been talking in this podcast for almost a month. Well, I think this program actually brings it up to the fourth one. So we're talking about the state of grace, this ultimate reality, this living out of the divine, living in the place where God lives, and from that place is our source. And I've talked about basically the pattern for this state of grace. And as a theist, and not only a theist, but as a Christian, I think that the relationship that exists among the members of the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is the pattern. It's the pattern for what it looks like to live in this state of grace. And so we've discussed that, for some time now, but I want to go a little further with it. I want to move into a second major division of this subject of how to live out of a state of grace. In the first section, we talked about the pattern, and we saw that God is a triune God, lives in communion. It's based on union, the oneness, the three in oneness, but it's a communion that brings forward equality, and an attitude of equality, because there is indeed an equality among the members of the Godhead. It brings forward a posture of submission, so there's no hierarchical dominance in the Trinity, but the members of the Trinity are submitted to one another. And we've said that pattern is the way it needs to look with humanity. It's the way we need to live our lives in this world. You don't have to be a Christian to understand that. You don't have to be a Christian to understand that the highest and most noble way of living is to live from the foundation of love. Well, as a believer, I take it as true when the Bible in the New Testament said, the Apostle John actually said, God is love. And so to me, that seems to be a very not only biblical but logical place from which we would want to live our lives, from the place of love. And so we see that pattern of grace exemplified in the relationship among the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But not only is it to be exemplified, for Christ is not just our example, but it is to be expressed through our lives, because the Christ lives inside you. Jesus Christ lives in you. And it is the desire of the divine love that defines you and that lives inside you. It is the desire of that divine love to equip you and enable you to live out of this state of grace, so that life in this world and the relationships that we have with one another as human beings is an extension and an expression of the life and the relationship that exists among the members of the Trinity. The incarnation of Jesus coming into this world and becoming human expanded the circle. So now what I've described as the pattern that exists among the Father, Son, and Spirit is actually the place where you and I live. And we're to live that same life that we see lived and expressed among the members of the Godhead. Well, I want to move on now to what I'm calling the pathway to the state of grace, which is kind of it's a misnomer, because really we're already in the state of grace. Through our adoption in Jesus Christ, we all squarely situated in the Godhead, in the triune circle of love and life. We're there, objectively speaking, but our subjective experience sometimes falls short, doesn't it? We don't act like what's true. We don't live like we're in union with divine love. And we certainly do not express the kinds of actions that would reflect equality and surrender and selflessness that I've talked about in previous programs. So what I want to talk about now and begin to talk about is how we traverse the pathway in our experience that leads us to the place where we live out of this state of grace. How do you get to live the God life? I mean, how do you express it? How do you live from a place of pure love? Is it by being more consistent in spiritual disciplines? Is it by going to church? Some of the meanest people I've ever met. No, not some of. By far, they're the meanest people I've ever met. I won't even qualify it. The meanest people I've ever met in my life have been people I met at church. I'm not trash talking the church. I'm just telling you my experience. So is this pathway to the state of grace, is it by church? Is that the golden key? Involvement in church? Is living out of this state of grace the result of studying the Bible more? Learning the Bible? Is it by praying? Well, the Pharisees in the days of Jesus missed it altogether, and they were devoted students of the Bible and prayer. Is living in this state of grace just by perfunctory, mechanistic deeds of kindness to the down and outers, to the needy? You see, the problem with all those things is that they lead us to a sequential approach to experiencing God that depends on us moving forward and doing the right things. It's a linear pathway if we look at it like that. Well, you got to do this, then you got to do this, then you got to do that. No, 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 no. I want to talk about that. Now, we're going to have to go back to a little science today, and I'm going to talk more about science than the Bible in this program. This is not church. I told you from the beginning. This is not even, I hope, not even religious. If it starts sounding religious, please let me know, and I'll try to change my evil ways. It is spiritual, that's for sure, because we're talking about God, but it's not church, it's certainly not religion. But anyway, today we're going to talk about science. Science and faith are married now, you know. Science and faith walk hand in hand. True science, that is. Not the materialistic science of yesterday, but the quantum physics, the quantum science of today. So let's talk about it to lay a little groundwork for this eternal experience of living in the state of grace. And I stress the word eternal there because it's not a temporal experience that we achieve by taking sequential and linear steps. You know, like I said, go to the Bible, go to church, read the Bible, pray, this, that. No, it's not temporal. It's not linear. It's quantum. It's eternal. Now, we often think that life is measured by a linear timeline that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But again, let's talk science. Beginning early in the 20th century, quantum physicists began challenging the whole idea of the meaning of time. I mean, they began to point us toward a quantum consciousness that transcends time as the deepest truth about the context of our existence. And I mean, this whole issue of an objective past and present and future, with quantum physics coming on, it's been challenged like never before until right now. And I'm talking scientists who are acclaimed scientists, stellar scientists. They're now contending and putting forward the idea that rather than consciousness being bound up in this space-time dimension that we perceive with our natural senses, rather than consciousness and reality being all wrapped up in this little box that we live in, they're saying we actually live in a realm that transcends time. That ultimate reality is nothing more and nothing less than the ever-present now. No past, present, future. There's only right now. The line is an illusion. I mean, materialistic scientists grappled with this, and no less genius than a man like Albert Einstein struggled with this whole concept. Oh boy, did he ever oppose Isaac Newton's argument for a closed universe. But well, let me back up. And I say he opposed it, not oh boy did he ever, but he did oppose it by hesitantly. I'm going to correct myself. He reluctantly acknowledged the work of men like Max Planck, you know, one of the fathers of quantum physics, and the guy who actually was the inspiration for the Matrix movies. Niels Bohr, another one of the early fathers of quantum physics. You know, Einstein admitted to an open cosmos that is greater than the mechanistic universe of scientific materialism. And like quantum physicists today, he didn't deny the presence of a material world with its predictable physical laws, but he argued, sometimes with begrudging reluctance, that there are what he called, well, in describing quantum entanglement, I'll give you an example. He called it spooky actions that happen at a distance. He was a materialist in a lot of ways, but he saw the truth in quantum physics. He was frustrated because it left so many unanswered questions. Sounds like religious Christians in the 21st century today, doesn't it? Now, later in life, Einstein became one of the most prominent critics of quantum mechanics, disputing publicly with men like Max Planck. While he admitted the accuracy a lot of their claims, but he disputed a lot of it. Einstein's goal right up till he died was to uncover a unified field theory, the theory of everything, that would answer all the questions and give a complete answer to why our universe exists and how it functions. But like most of the materialistic scientists of his day and even our day, those who still hadn't caught up, mystery irritated him. It irritated the crap out of him. Again, like a lot of evangelical Christians, they look for definitive, closed-ended answers, and God is mystery. God is mystery to be explored, not a puzzle to be solved. When it came to the idea of time, even Einstein acknowledged that there is no division between past, present, and future, but that it is a single existence. He concluded in his latter years that the past, present, and future all somehow exist simultaneously. Maybe the most clear-cut and plain-spoken testimony to that idea came when his longtime friend Besso died. Einstein wrote a letter to Besso's family, and he said in that letter that although Besso had preceded him in death, it was of no real consequence. He said, and I quote his letter, I'm quoting, he said, "For us physicists believe the separation between past, present, and future is only an illusion, although a convincing one." That's the end of the quote. So Einstein said there's no past, present, future. Now wrap your mind around that. This is science. This is science. And science now says there is no past, present, and future. There's only right now. There's only right now. Well, gee, how about that? And the Creator, when asked by Moses, his name said, he said, "Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go." And Moses said, "Well, who should I say sent me?" And the Creator said, "Tell him I am sent you." I am. What a name. Not I will be, not I was, but I am. This whole time issue is a human construct. It's not real in the eternal realm, outside of this little box we live in. I mean, we live in a little tiny box, a space-time continuum, where everything, it seems real. As Einstein said, it's a convincing illusion, but it's still only an illusion. Scientists now are identifying reality with 4 dimensions instead of 3, and they're counting time as the 4th dimension that exists only in our perception. You say, "Steve, what's this got to do with living in a state of grace?" Well, there's a reason I'm making this point about time, and it's because the state of grace is sourced outside of time. It's in the eternal now. Living at a state of grace is to recognize that our source, our home, is not in this little space-time box. But it's not linear, but it's a space, to use that word. It's a misnomer, but I'm going to call it that. To live out of the state of grace is to live in a space within the circular communion of the Trinity. It's a place that can ultimately only be realized by a non-linear quantum leap. And by that, I mean we don't get there by spending time with God. It's not a time thing. By reading spiritual books and going to church and praying and any kind of spiritual discipline, no matter what religion you're in, whether it's Christianity as a faith or if it's some religion, it doesn't matter. The access to God and living out of divine life is not a linear progression that comes by rote discipline. This quantum leap where we live in the state of grace, it could be called the experience of divine revelation or an epiphany or supernatural knowing. The important thing we got to understand is that this state of grace is based outside of time. It's in the eternal now. You are not a time creature. You are spirit. You are living in a dimension where you perceive time, but your source, your home, is in the eternal now. And the eternal now does not exist within time, but time exists within it. I hope I'm making sense to you. So the first step on the pathway to living in the state of grace is to realize that we won't find it in the materialistic world of physical science or even in the world of concrete theological facts. You don't experience life by propositional truths. They're just that. They're concrete. They're substance. They're facts. But to experience a state of grace that is sourced in the love of God is to rise above our five senses and even to transcend the thoughts that flood our brains at every given moment. Living in the state of grace is to become consciously aware at a level that's beyond thought. Consciously aware of the union we share in the divine love of our triune God in the eternal now. It is to consciously live in this pervasive force that fills the cosmos that a few programs ago I said I think can be seen by the dark matter and dark energy that makes up 96% of everything around us. That's what living in the state of grace is. It's not finding your source in this world, but it's finding your source outside of this world, in the eternal world. Now, if you go on the internet and Google this, you're going to find there are a lot of people out there that they're not atheists, but they're just deists. They're not even theists, let alone Christian. They're deists. And some of you that are believers in Christ, you need to get this because people are getting screwed up on this. I'm finding Christian people that are jumping track, and all of a sudden, it's not about Christ anymore. Now it's about the universe. It's about the universe. Now it's about, all of a sudden God has a new name, and his name is Universe. Now listen, here's the thing. The universe displays God. Make no mistake about it. I'm the one that just told you a while ago, and I did a whole teaching on it, that 96% of all that exists is dark matter. We don't understand it, we don't see it, but we know it guides and governs everything. That is the presence of God. But let me tell you, when you depersonalize God, when you depersonalize him and objectify him, you've missed the boat. You've jumped track. You've ran out of the baseline. You become, at best, a deist with a D. A deist who believes God is some impersonal force. God is love. Love is God. But it's all impersonal. It can't be that way. You can't have it both ways. You can't say God is love and then not let love be a person. Because love has no meaning unless it's shared between two who have personhood. At least two who have personhood. That's one of the arguments C.S. Lewis gave for why he believed in a Trinitarian God. Because if you just believed in a monotheistic God, that there's just one God, and of course we know God is one and three in one essence, but three persons. But if you believe God is only one person, who's he going to love? Love has no value. It's like having a gazillion dollars in cash on a 2-acre desert island in the middle of the ocean where there's nothing for sale. What good's it do? It has no value. It's not money anymore. It's just paper. You see what I'm saying? So this thing of love is the universe. Don't you fall into that. Don't you fall into that. And there are guys, I get a lot of good stuff from some of these guys out there who are writing from that perspective. They've got some good insight, but I'm a Christian. And I'm not going to go down that road where I depersonalize God and turn him into nothing more than a cosmic force. Nothing more than the universe. No, God is a person. The three in one. A lot of people believe this force, this pervasive force that fills the cosmos is impersonal, but that is not true. There are actually 4 conventionally accepted fundamental interactions in the universe, and I say they're conventionally accepted. These are true. There are 4 interactions, forces in the universe that everybody recognizes. Gravity, I'm tongue-tied. Electromagnetism, gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear and weak nuclear force. Each one of these is a force. Listen, it is an inanimate, impersonal force, each of these 4. But here's where people miss the track, and I hope I hope this is corrected because I'm trying to change the way we see God, but I don't want you to change the way you see God so that you miss the boat. When you talk about gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear, weak nuclear force, these are inanimate, they're impersonal. And some actually believe that the pervasive presence that governs the cosmos is impersonal in the same way these are. So the word God with a little g is bandied around by scientists who use the word in a very different way than I'd use it. And some of these guys, I respect a lot about them, but they'll banter around the word God. Scientists like Amika Swami, and I don't know if you call him a philosopher or what you'd call him, but people like Deepak Chopra and folks like that, they've used the word God a lot too. But if you're a Christian, they're not using that word the way you use it. So don't think they are. They're not. They are using it as an impersonal power. God is indeed a power, but he's not an impersonal presence who can only be known as the universe or the field or any other avant-garde phrase that's popular today among those who don't believe in the God Jesus came to reveal. So to live from the state of grace, we must see him not only as a power, but as a person. He's pure love personified. All right, I think I'm going to stop right there for now, because here's the takeaway from today. Those of you who are getting worried because I'm talking about, transcendence and the universal force that fills the cosmos and all that. So those of you conservative folks who are getting worried saying, "Oh, Steve's going all new agey," chill out, relax. Did you hear what I just said to the others? Did you hear what I said to the new agey? God is the universe and love is God and God is love, but there's no personhood here. It's only a force. Did you hear what I just told them? I just said the personhood of God is just that. He is a person revealed in the incarnation through Jesus Christ. And if you're one of these Christians that's kind of veered off the path, let me encourage you. You can believe a lot of this stuff that these people are teaching, about the field. I love a lot of that stuff from non-Christian people. They're teaching about the field and the theory of everything and the universe and all. I love a lot of that stuff, but I do not agree with them that God needs to be spelled with a lowercase g. No, God is an uppercase G, and he's revealed in Jesus Christ. So that's what I want you to get. If you've missed the boat and you're seeing God as impersonal, I want you to get back on track, because you have a skewed concept of God. But if you see God only as living inside of this time-space dimension that we perceive with the five senses, I'm trying to tell you it's bigger than that. Living in a state of grace, you have to get outside this time box. You have to get outside this time-space dimension and understand it exists in the eternal realm. All right, well, I'll talk about that more next time, but thanks for joining me today. If you think this has value, post it on your Facebook page, Twitter, all this kind of stuff, and let's get the word out there. And be sure and rate it on iTunes so you can help boost it up toward the top. Visit my website, gracewalkresources.com, where you can get more content, a lot of stuff that I've recorded that's available to you there. See you next time on Plain Talk.